Hello everyone, this is Kevin Craven from Craven Financial Solutions. Today we'll be talking about what is head of household. This is one that I see confused many times in my office. I'll have clients come in, sit down at the tax desk, a married couple, and they'll start to talk. The guy will step in and say, I want to claim head of household because I'm head of household. And that's just not what head of household is. So let's start off today by covering what head of household is not. Head of household is not the person in charge of making decisions in the house. Head of household is not the person that makes the most money in the house. And head of household is not a status that can be claimed by a married couple, with one very specific exception that we'll cover later on. So, what is head of household? Head of household is a filing status for a single taxpayer with a qualifying child. Head of household is a larger standard deduction. And finally, head of household will shift the tax bracket in the favor of the taxpayer. So who qualifies for head of household? Well, first, taxpayer must be unmarried or considered unmarried. To be considered unmarried, you must be a married taxpayer but have not lived with the spouse for the last 6 months, not a single day in the last 6 months. So if you're going through a separation, then that taxpayer, if they have their own residence and they don't live with their spouse anymore, and they have a qualified child that they supported for half the year, and that child lived with them for the half of the year, and that spouse never once stepped foot in the taxpayer's house in that last 6 months, never once stayed the night the last 6 months, then they can be considered unmarried for head of household tax purposes. Taxpayer must have a qualifying child, as I was just discussing. A qualifying child is not any relative. It has to be a relative. It has to be a child, your child, a foster child. It can be a brother. It can be a sister. There are very specific qualifications for qualifying child, and I won't go into those in detail here, but you can check out our classes online for more information on that. You would want to specifically go to the class on dependents for the further definition of qualifying child. The taxpayer must also provide the qualifying child's residence for at least half of the year. Now, there is an exception to this. Your parents would be able to qualify you for a head of household, and they don't have to live with you. You could have a parent in a nursing home or so forth, and as long as you're providing half of the support for that parent, they don't have to live with you at all during the year. And the fourth and final one, as I just covered, the taxpayer must pay at least half of the cost of the qualifying child's living expenses. Once again, for the parents, you have to pay at least half of the expenses, but they don't have to live with you. Those expenses would include such things as rent, mortgage interest, real estate taxes, insurance, property tax, repairs on the home, utilities, food eaten within the home. Things that it would not cover is going to be clothing, education, medical treatment, vacations, life insurance, transportation, and rental value of the home owned by the taxpayer. So if you were renting out a house and you were providing that house for the child but not charging them, then that wouldn't count towards the qualified living expenses. And what are the benefits of claiming head of household? Well, as I was stating before, the very first one is you get a higher standard deduction. As you can see here, this is the standard deduction rate for 2020 and 2019. As you'll see every year, the standard deduction moves up to account for inflation. Here we see that in 2020, a single taxpayer gets a standard deduction of $12,400. So that's $12,400 of income they get to remove from being taxable, whereas head of household would get $18,650. So you get a bump up of $6,250 if you're able to claim this head of household status. Now, if we take a look at the tax brackets, as I said before, you get a shift in the tax bracket as well. So the single filers, their income that's taxable at 10% starts at 0 and it moves up to $9,775. Whereas for a head of household, it starts at 0 and it moves up to the 12% bracket at $14,100. So you have larger jumps between your tax brackets. So the head of household moves you up slower when it comes to paying the tax rate, the higher tax rates. So that is the benefits of head of household. Those are the basics as far as who qualifies. You can find more information online in our school on filing status and on dependents. If you go ahead and subscribe and like the video and make a comment, we can get you a special gift. And until next time, thank you and have a great day.